Hola, buenos días. En este video voy a hablar del Cinco de Mayo. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Cinco de Mayo, which is a Mexican holiday. And the reason I'm doing this video is because often when Cinco de Mayo approaches in my Spanish classes, especially my Spanish 1, my beginning Spanish classes, I'll ask, what is it? What is Cinco de Mayo? Why do people celebrate Cinco de Mayo? And often there's this misconception that Cinco de Mayo is Mexico's Independence Day, which it is not. And I'll tell you a little bit about the Independence Day at the end of the video. But rather, Cinco de Mayo is a day to celebrate a victory in a battle that the Mexicans won. So I'll go into a little bit more detail here. From 1861 to 1867 was the Franco Mexican War, the French Mexican War. And what kind of led up to it was the Mexicans owed a lot of money to the French, the English, and the Spanish. And Mexico was able to work something out with the English and the Spanish. So they left, but then the French, they stuck around. Napoleon III at the time was the leader of France, and he was like, I want my money back, I want what's mine. So he sends a bunch of people over to Mexico to get back what is theirs. So he sends his one of his generals, which was his name was Laurent, and he comes to Veracruz first. He's there for a little while, and he decides, let's start moving inland. So he's going to go after this town called Puebla. And of course, Benito Juarez, the president of Mexico at the time, he finds out about this. He knows what's going to happen. So he has one of his generals, this guy named Zaragoza, prepare Puebla to the best he can to fight back this French invasion. The French were bringing about 6,000 troops. They were well equipped. They had artillery backup, just a really good army. And the Mexicans, of course, they didn't have as good of weaponry. They didn't have the artillery backup. They didn't have nearly that many troops. They only got about 2,000 people together, and a lot of them weren't even like trained soldiers. They were just people off the streets they could find to get them together and say, let's fight back. So in 1862, on May 5th, the French come in and to fight. They start fighting in the morning, and come the afternoon, the Mexicans have about 500 of their 2,000 people, I'm sorry, not 500, 100 of their 2,000 people had died in these battles. But the French, of their 6,000 troops, had already lost 500 by the afternoon. So while the Mexicans were still way outnumbered, the French realized that they were losing this battle. So they retreated. And this was it was a small victory, or a big victory, however you want to look at it, for the Mexicans over the French. So they celebrate this day as a victory. It was kind of like a beginning for them to an end, a beginning to reclaiming their country, which happened, by the way, in 1867. And this is when the French finally left. It was obviously because of the Mexicans fighting, and also the U.S. helped as well with political pressure and other aid to Mexico. And between the 1861 and 1867, Napoleon III, he installed this guy named Maximilian as the emperor of Mexico. So he's the emperor, the so-called emperor, for like 3 or so years. But once the French had to leave in 67, this guy Maximilian was captured by Benito Juarez and his men, and he was executed. So that was when it ended. For the Independence Day of Mexico, just so you have some information about that, that is actually September 16th, and this doesn't celebrate the actual date when Mexico got its independence from Spain, but rather the date when they began to fight for their independence. So in 1810, on September 16th, obviously, this guy named Miguel Hidalgo, he did what's called the Grito de Dolores. It was the shout from Dolores, and what it was a call to arms. It was let's fight back, let's reclaim our country, and that's when it started. That's when they started fighting the Spanish colonial government. And so Independence Day is September 16th. Cinco de Mayo is the celebration of the victory the Mexicans had over the French in Puebla in 1862. Okay, so hopefully this clears things up for you. Thanks for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.